Funky Forest: The First Contact is a collection of bizarre and nonsensical segments about relationships, aliens, and ridiculous musical numbers. It seems most of the stories revolve around characters that are unpopular with women, or at least they all follow some theme of a lost love connection. Either that or they're completely and totally random, trying to be as absurd as humanly possible. It's like watching some sort of alien TV broadcast. None of this really makes any sense. Apart from its themes, I'm struggling to come up with a plot for Funky Forest. It's Funky Forest has a reputation for being extremely weird. The only reason you may have heard of it is because of its absurdity. It's made a bunch of top 10 weird movie lists online. This is what it's known for, but the heart of Funky Forest is in its music. It's experimenting with creative and imaginative dance numbers. Finally, Funky Forest is a bit of a sketch comedy, or at least it has, sketches, but the comedy itself is questionable. Actually, everything in this movie is questionable. So, starting off with what you most likely want to see, the sick, perverted alien stuff, you sickos. There's a bunch of stories that take place in a school where students interact with aliens in a very perverted and immature way. There's a lot of penis tugging in Funky Forest. There's instruments that you play by plugging them into your butt. There's a scene where a guy is flicking another guy's testicles while he squirts milk out of his nipples at a girl swinging a tennis racket. Now, I know what you're thinking. You want to turn off this video right now and you want to watch this movie because it looks amazing. But don't get too excited because seriously, you're not missing anything outside of this video. There's nothing here that's sincerely humorous or entertaining, it's just random and silly for the sake of being random and silly. It's just shock value. You'll be astonished and confused at its very existence, but beyond that, there's nothing to take away from it. Moving on, Funky Forest has a lot of music. There's random instrumental segments throughout the movie, but there's a couple of dream sequences that focus entirely on trippy and imaginative dance numbers. To the movie's credit, it keeps switching things up, playing different songs, having different effects. It feels very experimental and creative. The music is funky and different, but ironically, with the filmmaking, there's absolutely no flow. It's just one weird thing after another, but it's lacking any sense of direction. This movie is clearly meant to be watched in the right mindset. You know, when you're feeling good and relaxed. Obviously, with a movie like this, you're supposed to experience it. You're supposed to sit back and enjoy the ride, since that's all it is. It's an experience. But it gets so stale so fast because they linger so long on everything, whether it's good or bad. It's dull, it's repetitive, and at 2.5 hours, it's extremely bloated. I feel like I should explain exactly how little is going on here. I'm not talking about a plot or individual characters because although there are reoccurring characters and there's a theme and there are motivations, there really isn't a story here. It's a movie about loneliness, about people having missed connections and wanting to find love. But the entire theme of the movie seems to be about disappointment. This movie loves to avert expectations. Much of this movie is leading up to a singles picnic, and when the day finally arrives, the twist is that none of the girls show up. It's funny, but it's a bit of a downer because there was actually a spark earlier in the movie, and there's no payoff. And then you spend the whole movie thinking that these other two characters are finally gonna hook up, and they don't. He asks her if they should date, and she dodges the question. The punchline to this whole movie is that nothing happens, that it's all been a waste of time. This movie somewhat feels like a practical joke on the viewers, but it isn't clever, or ambitious, or even earned. It's like the movie itself is a joke with a terrible punchline. This movie is weird and it's different, but somehow it's equally dull and uninteresting. There's a segment where these two characters just keep interrupting each other and making stupid faces. And that's it. That's the whole thing. And there's tons of moments like this. Characters doing uninteresting and non-consequential activities for prolonged periods of time. There's just nothing going on. That's not to say that all the writing's bad, because there is some funny stuff here. I sincerely laughed at certain moments of the movie. And there are some charming elements, but the bad overwhelmingly outweighs the good. It's a tedious experience. And it's really too bad, because the absolute absurdity of it seems promising. And just looking at the footage, it looks, at the very least, interesting. It's competently framed, the visuals look fine, but the cinematography is extremely stagnant and uninspired. Since this thing has 3 directors, it always feels like there's too many cooks on set. And instead of them fighting over how the movie should flow, they just didn't cut anything. It feels like the movie doesn't have a director. It's just unfocused and chaotic. If you're looking for something weird and different, this is certainly that, but there are better alternatives out there that are also good movie watching experiences. Funky Forest might be funky, but it's funky without the fun.